So what if your spiritual life wasn't supposed to feel like this exhausting staircase you have to climb step by painful step? What if it was more like an escalator designed to just carry you? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to dive into. A really simple metaphor that might just completely change how you think about faith and all the effort that goes with it.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about that feeling of burnout that comes from a performance-based faith. Then we'll get to the big aha moment, that escalator idea that changes everything. From there, we'll nail down what grace really is, and we'll put it side by side with a life of constant striving. We'll even look at why we sometimes fight against the very thing that's meant to help us. And finally, we'll get to what our part in all this actually is. And trust me, the answer might not be what you think.
You know, this question right here really gets to the heart of it. It speaks to this deep anxiety that so many people feel. I mean, think about it. If your faith just makes you constantly uncertain, always asking yourself, am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Then yeah, what's the point? That feeling of never being sure, that's the exact problem this whole escalator idea is here to solve.
Okay, so let's dig into that problem. We're talking about the weight, the heavy burden of religious striving. It's that feeling that you've got to perform, you've got to check all the right boxes, that you have to somehow earn your way into God's good graces. It's like being on a spiritual treadmill that just never, ever stops. The person who came up with this metaphor shares a really personal story that just brings this grind to life. He was a youth pastor, and on the outside, everything looked great. Running all the programs, full of passion. But on the inside, he was a mess, wrestling with this constant doubt about his own salvation. He felt this crushing pressure to always do more, to get more from God, which, of course, left him with zero peace. As it says here, life just felt like he was gritting his teeth, just trying to hold it all together. So how in the world do you break free from a grind like that? Well, for him, the big breakthrough didn't come from some deep theological study. Nope, it came from just a simple, everyday moment. This was his revelation. Okay, so picture this. It's November 3rd, 2016. He's in London, taking a quick break from his consulting job. He's just standing there, looking out over this massive atrium in an office building, and it's just filled with escalators. He's watching all these people just step on, get carried up to the next floor, and step off. It's completely normal, a scene you've seen 1,000 times, but right then, in that moment, something just clicks. This is the thought that just landed in his mind. Grace isn't the stairs you have to climb, huffing and puffing your way to the top. It's the escalator, already running, designed to carry you. And the key word here, the one that changes everything, is effortlessly. Now, this doesn't mean you do nothing at all. You still have to actually step onto the escalator, but the power that moves you, that's not coming from you. So, we've got this awesome metaphor of the escalator. But let's get a little more specific. What is this thing we're calling grace, really? Here's the absolute core of it. Grace is a gift. It is not a wage. You don't earn it by putting in more hours at church or by being a better person. It's God's favor, freely given, that actually empowers you to live the life you were meant to live. Think of it this way. The escalator is already on. It's already running. You don't have to do a thing to power it up. And this is where it gets really cool, because grace isn't just a passive idea. It's an active power. It's actually doing stuff. Theologians often break it down into these 4 phases. First, grace is the power that turns you toward Christ in the first place. Then, it's the power that keeps you there. Then it strengthens you for the day-to-day journey. And finally, it kindles you, it lights a fire in you to live a life that looks like His. It's a whole dynamic process, not just a one-and-done deal. So once you start to grasp this idea of grace, you realize it presents 2 totally different ways of living your life. Let's just put them right next to each other and see the difference. This slide just paints the picture perfectly, doesn't it? Over on the left, you've got a life of grace. It's like riding the escalator. You're being carried, it's effortless because you're confident in the power source. But then look at the right side. That's a life of striving, what the Bible calls living under the law. And that's like trying to climb a set of broken, crumbling stairs. It's just an exhausting, anxious grind where everything depends on you and your own performance. Now, you'd think everybody would choose the escalator, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer. But what's so fascinating is how often we actually resist it. The source material uses this great little parable about a woman named Laura to show us exactly what that resistance looks like. So, meet Laura. And from the outside, Laura is the perfect Christian.
Seriously, she's at every single church event, she serves constantly, she's always the first to show up and the last to leave. To anybody looking in, this woman is absolutely on fire for God. But on the inside, she's completely exhausted, totally burnt out, running on fumes.
And here's why she was so exhausted. Deep down, she was running on this quiet internal formula, basically a transaction. She believed that the more she did for God, the more he would do for her. See, that's not grace. That's a business deal.
So one day, totally at the end of her rope, Laura just breaks down. And in that quiet moment, she gets this picture in her mind. It's a ridiculous image, isn't it? Somebody red in the face, sweating, straining to physically push the steps of a moving escalator. But that's exactly what she'd been doing. All her hard work was actually fighting against the very thing designed to carry her. So this leads us to the million-dollar question. If we're not supposed to be pushing and striving and grinding it out, then what is our role? If life isn't a spiritual treadmill, how do we finally step off? Well, your role is surprisingly simple. You are not the motor. Let me say that again. You are not the motor. You're not supposed to be powering this thing. Your job is to simply get on the escalator and stay on it. This rest we're talking about isn't about being lazy or passive. It's an active, conscious trust in the power that is already at work for you. You know, the Bible actually has this fascinating paradox. It tells us to labor to enter God's rest. And you think, wait, what? How does that make any sense? Well, it means the only work left for us to do is the work of trusting. It's making the conscious choice, sometimes a very difficult choice, to stop trying to do it all in our own strength and to just rely on what God has already done. The real effort is in letting go. And so that really brings us to the final question I want to leave you with. What if this whole thing, what if the Christian life was never about proving your worth to God? What if it was always about learning how to be carried by God? Is it about climbing the stairs? Or is it about finally accepting the ride on the escalator?